Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the second episode in the missiondawah.com online dawah training course with Abdurraheem Green. Now, Abdurraheem, the question that I have for you is, previously we discussed the goal wrap method, but what in some situations might happen is that you go through the goal wrap method and the person that you're speaking to might just say, do you know what, I just feel my religion is true, or my parents, I just follow what they follow. So is there any way that we can counter that earlier on, so we don't go into that kind of situation?
Well, first of all, if a person did say that, I would talk to them about the problem, the issue between subjective and objective truths. Now, what does that basically mean is there's some things that may seem true to an individual, and they are, to that individual, they're absolutely true. But there's no way to prove that to everybody else.
Right.
You may feel certain things. No one can deny those feelings. Yeah. I'm in love with such and such person. How do you prove it? You can't. It's a feeling that you have, but it's certainly true to you. But how can you prove that to everybody else? Well, I mean, maybe you could by displaying certain things that we agree a person who loves another would do, those type of things. But I think you get my point.
Yes.
Whereas an objective truth is something we can all exact, like a scientific truth. Right. The power of scientific truths is that they're objective. Anyone can observe and examine and cross-examine the data. So I'd say the problem with what you're saying, the person who says that I feel it, is that I would say to them, I'm not trying to disrespect your feelings or your convictions, but a Buddhist might say the same thing, or a Hindu might say the same thing, or a Christian, or even an atheist, or even a person who's into snowboarding, or, he may say, that changed my life, yeah? So the fact that something changed your life makes you feel good. Lots of other people can make the claims, and they believe different things. So why is your religion true where everyone else's is not true? And you've got no way of distinguishing except that's what I feel. So I think it's really problematic. It's not a useful way of trying to sort out what's the right religion from the wrong religion. But what you can do is counter that, is build into your conversation something that from the very beginning makes sure that when you're having a conversation, this is very useful, when you're having a conversation with someone about a topic as controversial as religion, you need to establish from the very beginning what's the basis on which we're having this conversation.
Right.
And it's not just, I feel that. A person may say, well, I just follow what my parents taught. That's another thing. I'm just following the religion. Isn't that what everyone should do? So from the very beginning, to counter those type of objections, which are not really objections, or to encounter you having to sort of go right back from the beginning, why not introduce from the beginning the idea that we're going to have a conversation and we're going to use our common sense and reason to come to conclusions.
Right.
So when we make a decision about what's the purpose of life, why are we here, what's this all about, don't you think the best thing to use is the thing we use every day to make such decisions? Common sense and reason.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the benefit of it. So in Go Wrap, before you Go Wrap, it's very useful if you can. And it depends. I mean, everything depends. Every situation's different. But again, that's my basic. Whenever I can, when I'm having a Go Wrap conversation with people, I get them to agree about the use of common sense and reason, and that's why I use what I call the device, the conversational device of the man in the red underpants. What would you do if a man wearing nothing but, you could use whatever you like, maybe you don't feel comfortable, sisters might not feel comfortable, mashallah, about mentioning a man in red underpants. Some sister says the man in the whatever, no problem, that's whatever you feel comfortable with. I used to say, what would you do if a guy with tattoos, love and hate, and dressed in a leather jacket like a Hell's Angel came knocking you and said, I'll come to read the gas meter. Yeah. Okay, what would you do? Most people say, I tell him, I wouldn't even answer the door. I'd tell him to go away. And I say, well, why? Why would you do that? Well, because he doesn't look like the gas man. I say, okay, so what process did you use to come to that conclusion? And what we're trying to get from them, and if they don't say it, you can offer it to them. It's actually a basic type of reasoning. This is reasoning at its most basic fundamental level. What I do is compare what I know, the information I know. The man who reads the gas meter usually looks like this, wears this, has this computer thing, you know, has a uniform, has an ID badge. There's certain things that we know from our experience.
Yeah.
And this does not match the experience. So that analysis, comparing those two things, this is reasoning. This is us reasoning. In this instance, it happens on a very fast level. Sometimes reasoning takes a long time. But the process that we use to make sense of what's going on around us is reason. That's what we use. So if we use reason for something like this, and why would you not let this guy into the house? Because you're afraid he may rob you or something worse. If you're using reason to protect your life and your property, how about something potentially even more significant than that? The very meaning of life itself. Don't you think we should use reason to try and understand what's the meaning of life, why are we here, what's it all about? And that's why, by the way, the whole purpose of life is a really good device as well, a conversation starter.
Yeah, sure.
So do you understand? That's why that's why it's a nice idea it establishes the premise. Now what is really great is that if later on in the conversation, and this happened to me several times, and including recently it happened, but alhamdulillah, I learned from my mistake the first time. I spent 40 minutes talking with a Hare Krishna, going through the whole of Gaurap. He agreed with me. Everything, yeah, I agree, right until the end. And then he started saying Hare Krishna is the incarnation of God. I said, wait a minute, we agreed that God was this and that. He said, yeah, but some things, you know, you can't explain by reason. And, you know, and then he started saying, do we even know if we're real and what's not? And it's like, what did I just waste my 40 minutes for? If I'd begun right from the beginning, by saying we're going to use reason, right? Then we straight away I'd say to him, yeah, but you agreed from the beginning.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, recently, you know, now I've incorporated that. I had a very memorable conversation I had with a Christian, and the same thing I went through Gaurap, but this time I started by getting him to agree. The man in the red underpants. Now, the nice thing was, further on the conversation, when we got to this issue of Jesus being the Son of God, and he said, yeah, but you know, you can't understand these things. And I said, do you remember the man in the red underpants? Do you remember what we agreed right from the... And he just went, oh yeah. You see, so the thing was, we'd agreed. So why are you throwing reason out of the window now? You know, you have to give a reason why you're throwing reason out of the window. Yeah. So that's why it is beneficial. And so really Gaurap's based upon a lot of experience, you know. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe the person, you know, and I've had conversations where I haven't had to. In 10 minutes I've gone through the basics and the person's become Muslim. But you know, generally if you're going to have that conversation, it's very useful to introduce that. And the reason is so that later on a person doesn't pull out the joker. Because that's what it's like. It's like pulling out the joker. Yeah, it's like, oh, you know, and then you have to sort of go back to the beginning, or you might think, why did I bother with this conversation? So that's the benefit of introducing the importance of why we're going to use reason, why we're going to use common sense. Let's agree. That's what we're going to use to make a decision about these things.
Okay. So basically, just from, you know, before you start the conversation and going into the Gaurap, you just say to them, firstly, you know, we're going to agree to use common sense, reason, and experience. Do you agree upon that? That we should use that.
I mean, basically, you say, would you agree that the best way to understand? I mean, you should give them some examples.
Yeah,
show them that, look, this is what we use all the time to make our decisions.
Yes, yeah.
So why not? Why not use it for this conversation as well? Now, I mean, occasionally that may itself be a different conversation which we don't deal with.
Sure.
And you may learn that as you get more advanced in dawah. A person may say, no, I don't agree to use it. So what do you say then? That's a whole different topic, yeah?
Sure.
But I haven't actually met anyone yet who said that. But there will be one. I'm sure there will be one. And, you know, there's ways to deal with that as well.
Right.
You know? But generally, what can you say? You know, why would you use? And then even if a person, this is what you would respond to them with, even if a person says, no, we don't use reason, they have to give a reason why they don't use reason. And everything has to be explained through reason.
Okay, excellent. Jazakallah khair, Abdurraheem. So this has been the second episode in our online Dawah training course series. So inshallah, we'll be seeing you in the next episode where we'll be discussing God's existence. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.